what do we want to go? Where are we at now? I think that's probably something that is a little difficult for companies to really recognize because they see the Spotify's of the world out there doing fun things. And Spotify is cool, but you're not Spotify, right? You need to acknowledge who you are. We'll go without naming names of companies where they have this amazing product that we love as consumers. That doesn't always translate over to a strong culture and a strong employer brand, because sometimes they're kind of too focused on producing what makes our lives amazing, but kind of makes hell for their employees. Going into employee advocacy, that's a huge one. It's been around for the longest time, but I think people, in my opinion, have struggled to really crack the code per se, because they fall in love with that, they buy these platforms, and then they don't know what to do with it.
When you think about creating a workplace that truly resonates with people, where does employer branding fit in? How do we make the candidate experience not just attractive, but meaningful in a way that reflects an organization's true culture? Hey, I'm Tim, and welcome to Future Work, the podcast for HR professionals navigating the fast-evolving world of work. Each episode brings you insights and tools to lead today and prepare for tomorrow. Today, I'm talking with Alex Her, the co-founder of the EB Space, head of global employer brand at GoDaddy, and a recognized leader in employer branding. Alex shares his perspective on how to build an authentic employer brand that aligns with an organization's unique culture, from leveraging AI in branding efforts and cultivating employee advocates. We discuss where to start and how to shape it with intention, and we also discuss the ROI of building an employer brand. So let's jump in.
This episode of Future Work is brought to you by Tactic. Does your hybrid office feel like chaos? Who's in the office? Where are they sitting? What meeting rooms are available? Luckily, I have a solution for you. Tactic is the #1 rated space logistics platform used by customers like Microsoft, Redbull, the United Nations, and Northwestern University to create order out of chaos. Tactic has a 100% customer satisfaction score on G2 because it was built from the ground up with the end user in mind. It's an all-in-one solution for hot desking, room reservations, and visitor management. Visit gettactic.com/work and start your free trial today. Thanks so much to the Tactic team for sponsoring this episode. And now onto the podcast.
Well, Alex, I'm excited for this interview, this conversation. So I'm going to be a student to what you are telling us as well, not just to the audience. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about who you are, what's kind of getting you excited right now in the world of work.
Yeah, I think I may be able to help you out with what we're going to talk about. Alex Her, I co-founder of the EB Space, a all Discord community for free. Been an employer brand leader, student of the employer brand industry for about 7.5 years. And what excites me about some of the work that I'm doing is, when it comes to the community that I'm a co-founder of, it's really just spreading the word and getting others involved, and not just, some of the main countries out there, first world countries where employer branding has come a long way, but also in a lot of emerging markets where maybe they don't have the opportunities to learn some of the best practices, or just just have a sounding board to run their ideas off of. So bringing people together, I'm a natural connector. So that's a thing I'm excited about there. Outside of that, just seeing where everything is going overall with how AI is impacting the work that we do. I think there's a lot of action out there about, what it's going to do. Robots are not coming in to start typing for us to take us away. It could be further from that, but I think there's a lot of potential there. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into AI and employer branding in a bit, because I'm curious how, specifically for HR folks who might have employer branding underneath in their umbrella or their scope of work. Set the stage first. Let's define employer branding. Yeah,
so to me, it's a reputation. It's what people say, think, or feel about you when you're not in the room. It is no different than our thoughts. And, it becomes very foreign, right? And I think people always struggle with that, but I try to dumb it down like I'm talking to, like a 12-year-old, probably a little bit younger than that, since I think 12-year-olds have come a long way since then. But it's just looking at, let's say, your mobile devices, like an iPhone. Think about Apple. It's very easy to see, okay, the consumer brand is Apple itself, the logo, the icon. It's known for being very prestige. Everything is polished. And you want to be something like that when it comes to your employer brand. You want to be something that's a little more experimental out there, giving you like cutting edge technology when it comes to maybe the Google Pixel devices or Android made devices. So really depends what you want. But I think that's, I always try to make that comparison so people understand that. And then if they can grasp it, I go a little bit deeper into all the fun stuff that I maybe geek out on. But at the surface level, that's what I feel it is.
Well, before we hit record, I asked permission to go off script, and you already said something that's now got me curious. Is what aspects of EB or employer branding do you geek out over?
Everything. I mean, for me, it's the simple fact that it's a lot of self-reflection, right? Because I think with employer branding, we join a lot of different companies, and I think everybody is super aspirational, right? You're going through the interview process. Can't experience is another thing I know. Well, there are aspirational goals that are sometimes you can reach those, a lot of times you can't. But knowing, okay, hey, so once you're in there, okay, what are we really about? Like, what do we want to go? Where are we at now? I think that's probably something that is a little difficult for companies to really recognize because they see, the Spotify's of the world out there doing fun things. And Spotify is cool, but you're not Spotify, right? You need to acknowledge who you are. So it's taking a look in the mirror at, where your organization is at, where the culture is at, because how you work with your customers is vastly different than what it's going to be with the people who work there and the people who you do want to attract. So I think that and just diving into all the little golden nuggets you can find, whether it be creating stories, reels, video spotlights, TikToks, blogs, paid campaigns, long-term initiatives in terms of strategy for the year. There's just so many things to take away. And I think at the heart of that, what really, really does excite me is it takes you back to when we're all job seekers, right? And when you're on the market of either of your own doing, right, when you have the opportunity to choose, you're not rushed to go to the first employer that says yes. You take your time, right? Then you're very intentional. And you think of the places you've gone to where the career page it's not trash, it's not Workday or something like that. Or, that I love them as a platform, but then, their ATS is a little hit or miss. But you got these great videos, these great photos that really capture your attention and make you excited about that, right? And that's where, okay, you have the opportunity to reflect that. And that's what initially hooked me onto this employer branding world 7.5 years ago. And I have yet to let go, I've yet to lose interest. It's only gotten better and stronger, I would say.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Employer branding, we look at that product like you described at Apple, right? It's a product that's customer facing. Employer branding is that internal facing. It's also attracting for that candidate. It is how you're presenting yourself to that job seeker, but also to all your employees. And I like that you brought in that candidate experience because, man, I've landed on career pages and you think, wow, this is phenomenal. And then you start reaching out to a few people at the organization and it's like, oh, is that really what they're doing there?
Yeah, definitely that. What I will say, it's a mix, right? It's I'd say a lot of times it's more external. There are opportunities where we can join forces internally to work with our teammates. And I think that's where you get to a much more mature employer brand where you have the opportunity to do that and, really dive in. But I agree with you. Some of these companies seem phenomenal, right? Like we'll go without naming names of companies where they have this amazing product that we love as consumers. That doesn't always translate over to a strong culture and a strong employer brand because sometimes they're kind of too focused on producing what makes our lives amazing, but kind of makes hell for their employees.
Yeah, I think thanks for that distinction, right? Especially as a newer company, maybe a smaller company, is how are you presenting yourself to that market, that external rather than that internal. And so when you think of somebody who's maybe in HR, people and culture, and they're doing it all, right? They can't bring in someone like yourself or bring in an employer branding team. Where does somebody start, right? If somebody's looking at, hey, one of their corporate goals is to revamp how they're facing the market, their careers page. Where do they start? How do you actually get your brand out there to the market?
Yeah, I would say, if you're looking to see how you can get your brand out there in the market, maybe identifying where you're at the moment, because you don't really know what the bar is, right? You kind of have to, an idea, okay, where should you be headed? Like, are you, if you're in the the podcast game or, podcast audio? Are you closer to Spotify, Apple Music? Or you probably maybe more along iHeartRadio or something like that, right? You need to know where you need to be going, but that, and then internally just seeing exactly where you're at. Like, are you a company that has like a Glassdoor rating of 1? Or are you at a 5? But outside of that, what do your internal surveys tell you about where you are? And then seeing, doing a pulse check with, I think the simple thing that people do forget about is you do have people who work there, right? It costs you nothing to talk to them. All it does is a simple Teams message, email, Slack, set up some calls with them, because that's what you would otherwise do if let's say if you had the money to bring in an agency, a consultant to come do things. They have that direct access to do that. But that requires spending a little bit of money, which in this circumstance you don't have to use. So do that yourself and figure out, hey, maybe speak to people across different departments and ask them, hey, how are we doing? Are we, are we good here? Are we good there? And that kind of gives you an idea, okay, like how innovative can I mean, you can still be innovative, but like, what can I truly show? What can I not show? What can we talk about? What are we really about? And I think that will give you much more to work with versus just going out there and just trying to build something that maybe doesn't align with where you're at the moment.
Based on what you've seen through your community and through your own research, and what are some trends that you're seeing from an employer branding perspective or candidate experience perspective?
Yeah, definitely AI. That is one thing. And I think with, if you're starting as a team of one, that will really help you out, get you much further ahead. The one that's big that kind of hovers over two different things is influencer marketing, because it's been a big thing that's been big on the consumer side. A lot of companies do that with their consumer brands. It has not been done as much on the employer brand side. And where I say that kind of hovers over two different areas is if you look at that, where you have an influencer who is doing something for a company, it also goes into employee advocacy, because typically with that, we're looking for people who are natural advocates, ambassadors on different social platforms. They may have that much of a following where they become your influencer to do that influencer marketing. So I would not discount them at all. But going into employee advocacy, that's a huge one. It's been around for the longest time, but I think people, in my opinion, have struggled to really crack the code per se, because they fall in love with that. They buy these platforms and then they don't know what to do with it. So basically all you're doing is just, you're leveraging great teammates who are natural storytellers. They're great at putting stuff out there. You're educating them, enabling them, helping them build their networks while also building telling the good story of your employer brand. So I think that's something that is huge, been around for a while, but I think it's still picking up more steam. And this is more, going back to what we talked about in terms of building your employer brand. It's being very, very transparent about who you are and being more direct behind that, because you're either AI company or you're not, right? So the cool AI companies that are doing that, ChatGPT, like great, they have something amazing to tell, but you can't be them. So I think there really are companies who are doing that. Bolt is one who did that phenomenally well recently, and I think it was for the location out of Poland. They did a phenomenal one about what they're not. I believe it was to the effect of they don't go into the office, or what makes them different than any other company there in their market. But I thought that was great, and I think more of that will do more good than harm for companies.
It's owning who you are, getting confident in that identity. You mentioned the word culture. I've recorded an episode with Gustavo, the founder of Fearless Culture. I think that's a foundation, right? Understanding that culture, your values, your purpose, and how do you translate that into a message to attract the right audience, but also the right team members.
I agree, because I did work for a company in a distant past, and what they wanted versus what their culture was two different things. It was never going to happen. So I think that gives you a lot to work with initially.
I see that employer branding as the promise you're making to somebody who you might be attracting into your organization. That candidate pool, right? It's a promise, and so I'm now going to go, I'm sure after this, I'm going to start looking at some career pages and say, like, is this actually their language? Are these all stock photos that you could find anywhere else? It matters, doesn't it, to somebody who might be applying for a role there?
It does. I mean, I would say, you're, I just got back from your home country there of Canada, and one Hollywood superstar who is a stock photo, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on someone's career page, is Simu Liu. So he was big on the, I'm trying to think if it was Unsplash or one of those sites, but then You could very well find him or other probably unknown actors who are on stock photos. But yeah, I think you'll go out there and you'll have a different opinion once you look at these pages now.
Yeah, and I think that's really important from an HR perspective is, yeah, you can't just throw something out there and try attract the right candidate. It's intentional. You have to be intentional about it. And, I spent a lot of time in advocacy work through disability inclusion. And so this one is kind of, I'm really curious about finding that employee advocate. Have you seen it be successful? Do you have an example of that? And a company might be listening to this going, yeah, that's a good idea. How do I get started? Like, how do I find that advocate to say, yeah, go out and tell the world about us and how good we are? And, hopefully they're aligned with that.
Yeah. I think it's rather easy because, and obviously that's, I'm a bit naive there because this is what I do, right? It's my bread and butter. But, LinkedIn is much bigger than it was 8, 9, 10 years ago. So going out there and seeing, some of your most creative people are obviously in marketing, your social media teams. See what they're doing. See what they're creating, what they're producing. They'll naturally be sharing stuff on their own. And that's where, that's an opportunity to say, okay, hey, if they're doing this, maybe it wouldn't hurt to put a little, call on their calendar, a little Zoom chat and see, hey, you're doing this, can we maybe work with you? It doesn't hurt to maybe give them a gift card, free lunch, or give them some internal points if you have a internal reward system, and then try that out. And then, hey, maybe on top of that, you realize you have more than one person who's good at this. And then that's when you start building your employee advocacy program. But, it's if you take the time and effort into it, I say, gosh, connect with people at your company is probably the best thing you can do first. But then outside of that, see what they're doing, see what they're posting, engage with them. And you'll be surprised, like at every company I've been at so far, you'll come across people who, they're onto something, and either they know that or they don't, but they have something that you want to, jump on a ride for and just say, hey, let's try to make this work. And that, who knows where it can go from there. It doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah, I agree. I've worked in organizations where there are outspoken champions of that organization. And it's being a bit more intentional about creating that relationship with that employee. Not from a place of, hey, post about how awesome we are twice a week and we'll pay you, $5 a post. But thinking at it from that perspective of, hey, we love that you're a champion. How can we help you amplify your voice and your mission as well?
Yeah, exactly. You wanna enable them, like you said. I think if you, they'll take your money if you keep saying, "Hey, come here. We're a great place." Eventually, they'll get sick of that. Their network gets sick of that. They'll stop posting for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it comes down to creating that plan, and that it's more than just, hey, let's throw out a couple of posts and try and attract the right candidate and create that right candidate experience, or just that right customer, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so, exactly. Somebody might be listening to this in HR going, okay, we haven't spent a lot of time on this piece, let alone that candidate experience. So let's shift the conversation there a little bit, because I know you do employer branding and candidate experience are, I think, closely tied. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I've had the chance to do that either with me as a team of one. I would say with the full-time gig, I have the luxury of having a candidate experience team along with my team. And yeah, you're locked in step with what you do. Like I can't imagine that employer brand, or candidate experience team would be very siloed, not work together, because there's so many great opportunities just to work together. It would be a huge miss if you were not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Having that candidate experience and just having that dialed in, it just makes sense. Would you have any advice for someone who maybe that's part of their remit, part of the employer branding, part of that candidate experience, and how to get started and where you see that there's opportunity just based on your experience and what you're seeing maybe through your community or through your other work?
Yeah, I think if you're questioning like where you should be going with the care experience and where you can, infuse the employer brand, it's take a test drive on your own career page. So do an A/B test. I think it's simple QA IT logic that we all forget about, but we all do naturally. It's okay, maybe see what your career page, what the experience is like. Are you getting, if I apply for a rec, do I get an email right away? If I do, is there branding infused there? Are there logos? Are there social links? If there's not a video, that's a mess. Okay, you can work on that. Outside that, okay, are we keeping candidates warm? And then if we finish the interview process, do we just drop them like a bad habit? Do we do the annoying thing everyone cries about on LinkedIn? But it's true. 6 months afterwards, when you don't need the job anymore, you get a disposition email that says, okay, hey, sorry, we went with another person. Or even before then, that's not happening. If you're not, hearing anything at all, that's a huge miss. And then go look at the company that you do admire. Maybe, we talked earlier about companies that do things, but maybe they're lacking on the EB or candidate experience side. But there's a lot of companies who, more than none, who probably have that down packed. So go through their experience. And I'll tell you, more times than not, I've walked through and I'm like, hey, we could do some work here. We need to be doing more of this versus what we're doing. So you'll have a comparison there, and that'll give you a whole bunch to work with that you did not have before.
Yeah, I love that. It's approaching it from that A/B test, but also with the mindset of process improvement, not just a process. Right? I've talked on a previous episode about, hey, laying out that candidate experience process, but I love how you're bringing in, make sure your brand is there. Put in some videos, put in some logos, your social links, testimonials, like make it yours. Put it in your language.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, it's there, you own it. You're probably paying a huge contract with that ATS. There's multitude of options there for you. And you know what? They always give an option to brand that in some shape or form. It may not be the best, but they give you something. So if you're not using that, I think it's a huge missed opportunity.
Where do you see the future of employer branding going? I'm curious, employer branding and that candidate experience. I know AI it's here, and I can't even fathom where it's going to go. And so what are you seeing? What are you thinking about these two things?
I think it's going to grow even more, and I think we're going to be more strategic, which is good because we've come historically from being someone's dark secret on the comms or TA team with we know we need a person who does this because, we maybe don't get the love we need from another department. And we'd love for people to spread the good word about our culture and our jobs. But, maybe we have some headcount. We'll give it to this one person here. And this one person does the work of 5 or 6 people, it's not very conducive, right? It's actually just, you'll check the boxes, but then you can never get down and find those hard-hitting stories and, truly identify what you are. But I think that's where there's a huge opportunity. I mean, I've been looking at this a lot myself, to be quite honest, is that, and, we talked a little bit earlier about the fear of AI, but there's so many, in my opinion, there's so many different tasks that we do where, okay, like a competitive research, which is always necessary when you're going into different markets. Instead of, throwing money at some of these different platforms, hey, maybe you can do that with, GPT, Gemini, Copilot, whatever your choice is, whatever you can use, I would say, within, the legal bounds of your company. Look at that and see what you can do, because you can get that done in a matter of minutes versus several hours. So where I'm going with that is, okay, knock this stuff down. Stuff that may have taken hours before takes a matter of minutes now, obviously a little bit of refining. But that opens up the ability for you to truly be creative and do different things. You may still have a lot of, a one-man show or one-person type of show approach with one person who does everything, but they're going to be a lot more strategic because they have AI there to help them out. They have, different options that will assist them. And it's not just for, for research or copywriting. It's also for, this is, always have a lot of thoughts about this, but you can generate videos or photos using AI. So that gives you more to work with. I mean, it's still kind of hit or miss when it comes to being very authentic, but it gives you a lot if you have nothing to work with. And I think that puts you miles ahead of where, even I would have been 7 years ago.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine, being a one-person show trying to write it all myself without a team member called GPT or Gemini or Copilot, but using it as a sounding board. But what I'm hearing is leverage these tools, but make it your own. Making sure that it's your voice and not just an AI bot writing everything for you. So it cuts down time, but
exactly.
But make it your own.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, what people forget too is we've had Textio, if you've had the budget with your company, or Grammarly, which is free. And they have given you the ability to, not rewrite it in the sense where it's not your own words, but give you helpful suggestions. Maybe I'll just call the elephant in the room here. Us Americans, we write stuff. It's never the way the rest of the world writes it. I'm not oblivious to that. So if you're working in UK, you want to speak with UK English, Canadian English, okay, that will help you out versus you going in there and manually doing that in a few seconds. Grammarly will pull it up and say, hey, this is what you could be doing. Or maybe, you're writing a paragraph that's way too long. Help you minimize that. That was there long before GPT. But there's a lot of great things that can, I think, really make a difference and help you out. But I know it's helped me out because I've come from where I was writing everything on my own. So I still appreciate that. But if I don't need to spend an hour doing that, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I do some consulting in the HR space and often just using AI as a brainstorm partner and be able to just to flesh some ideas out even. It's like, hey, we need to rewrite X, Y, or Z, depending on the country you're in. And
there we go.
See, there you go. And making it your own. And so, I want to flip over to your community for a sec because
Sure.
doing my research and hearing from you, you run a Discord community on employer branding. What are some of the common themes and common questions that you see coming through the community that people are asking right now and seeking insights and support on?
Yeah, well, first say is it's I wish I could take all the credit for that, but that does involve my good friend Claire D'Souza, who's a co-founder of that. So I would say the community we do run together. A lot of the questions we see, it's okay. Like, what's the best HR tech out there? Because we work a lot with the ATSs. We're always working to connect with, what's the tracking mechanism? How can we show, what sources are coming in from the work that we're doing? What are the app platforms out there? Also, what events are you going to? Which places are, which locations are the best to work with? What did you discover about this market that I didn't know? What are some of the opportunities that maybe I'm missing or you're missing when it comes to things such as Google Tag Manager, analytics? What are also just maybe some events where I can go to learn more about this? Because, the Discord community is great, but there's also that there's the desire, ever since COVID to get back there in person, right? To meet up with people because there's only so much, like, there's ways you can type when it comes to messaging, WhatsApp, Discord, but sometimes it just does not match talking to, like if let's say you and I are talking in person, that conversation is much more intimate and personal. And there's ways you could take that, to deeper conversations. And I just think it, there's so many, so that's just, tip of the iceberg in terms of some of the stuff that we talk about. But I would say on top of that, just sharing jobs, sharing what the opportunity is out there for someone who is maybe in APAC versus EMEA or here in North America.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm really curious about what happens inside these communities, and there's a number of communities out there that I love, and so I'm going to definitely check yours out because, as part of FlexOS, we want to make sure that we're providing resources to our audience as well. And as companies are asking these questions, people are in these communities asking these questions. And from my perspective and on this conversation is, hey, how are we going to attract that top talent? How are we going to continue to attract that top talent? And so what strategies, is there one or two strategies that we can provide our audience, our listeners today on how to leverage employer branding and attract that talent that you need?
I think probably the easiest thing you could do is identify what top talent is. Because you and I, let's say we work for, don't want to throw any of the big name companies out there, but we work for, one company A, let's go with that. And we have an idea, perception of what the perfect candidate may be and top talent, but it's always in the eye of the beholder, right? So maybe hiring manager in engineering feels, I don't care what you guys think. Top talent is someone who is from a place where I'm very biased. I'm going to choose someone from a FANG company. Well, our efforts that we're doing from an employer branding approach, we could be putting these amazing videos and everything out there, blogs, but no matter what we do, they're not going to accept anybody unless they're from a FANG company. So there becomes an issue. But if we're aligned on, okay, our approach is we want the best person for the job. You can go with, a term that either people, they love it, they hate it, they're a cultural fit, they match with what you want to do. They're probably very green. And you don't care where they're from. You don't care which college, which university, which tech school they went to. That's the perfect candidate for you. We'll train, we'll build on potential. I think that makes it a hell lot easier. And then we know, okay, our efforts, whatever we do, it's always going to be a win. It's going to add on to that and not take away or end up being something that's not a huge ROI at the end of the day, because ultimately you do want to show some sort of return of investment in the work that you're doing.
That's the magic words, isn't it? Return on investment. founder or
Exactly.
CEO might be listening to this and going, well, what is return on investment for this? And I have my ideas on that return on investment. But if somebody's listening to this and saying, yeah, we need to invest in the employer branding, we need to invest in the candidate experience, what is that ROI metric that you have kind of in your pocket? Or do you have one that you say, hey, this is one we got to focus on?
It depends where you're at, because the company that's never, because in my opinion, and this is opinion shared by a lot of folks, James Ellis is one of them as well, really good dude. But you have to know, exactly where you're at, right? Because, okay, you could be going in and, okay, if you're brand new and you're just now managing your employer brand, okay, ROI for you could be 1 million people to your career page. That's great. But once you get much more mature with that, okay, I would say probably you're several years into it, you've built something really, really good. Like, where are we actually saving money? Are we not relying on job boards as much? That's a huge one. Are we not going to events as much because we've identified maybe we spend 6 figures a year, but we don't get a hire? Okay, that's not a good ROI. That's a terrible ROI. Or if we're just, paying for all these different partnerships that, should be giving us what we're looking for, whether it be tech talent, diversity, whatever it is that you're looking for. If you're not getting that, that's a terrible ROI. And then I would say, everyone's pockets, because it does impact all of us. And it would make sense outside of employer brand. We have those deeper, more meaningful conversations that do matter. Are we getting people to start sooner? Like time to fill, time to hire. Because if you're getting people butts in seats sooner equals more people working on different products, different innovative things that the company's doing, and there's a less time to hire. So they're not, you're not wasting more time and effort to create more content, keep this job on Indeed, on LinkedIn much longer, go to X amount of events and do that because you're lacking. You're doing that. You're doing the work, right? To me, that shows that, okay, if everything you're doing, whether it be advocacy, you're applying, a great candidate experience, you're doing everything from a content marketing, recruitment marketing perspective that is funneling folks in. Let's say you're knocking your time to fill down from maybe 50 to 45 days. You're saving the company money. You're saving the money, time and money, and then go back and build more things. And honestly, bring in more money for them. And not, people hate hearing this, but they're going to make money for, whoever their investors are, the shareholders. You don't want to address that, but it's true. So if you're helping them get to where they need to be sooner, that is showing a huge ROI for you and your team.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Getting people in seats virtually, physically, whatever that looks like, that's the ultimate goal, right? And defining that top talent, defining what that means. What are the competencies? What are the skills? What are the traits that you're looking for? And building the job descriptions and career pages and the marketing to attract what you're looking for. It's a great place and a great thing to do.
Agreed.
It just makes sense. Hey, Alex, as I look to wrap up here, I've learned a lot about employer branding, and I think I had my idea of what it is wrong, and I've now corrected that about how closely tied to the employee that candidate experience is. Somebody's listening to this, maybe an HR professional, maybe somebody who's maybe just starting their career or is thinking of that future of work, that next year or 2 years down the road. What is one thing that they should be doing today to be able to master this for their organization or even in their career?
I will say, before you go out and buy the latest and greatest tech and you try to go out and, just spend thousands of dollars on the EVP and build out, a team or whatever it is you're trying to do, look within first, kind of identify where you're at, what your problems are, where you need to be going, if there's improvements to be made. Because I think if you can look at that and then say, okay, hey, maybe we're not where we should be, but if we had this and we know we can, we have a true business case to build this out. And if we had, let's say, a team of 2, we had proper, career page vendor, ATS, just throwing things out there, video vendor too. And this is how we're going to approach that. But I think if you do that, you're better off versus just going out there and assuming, hey, if I go buy whatever's the best HR tech out there, that it's going to solve my problems, because I've always seen it fail when that happens. But so I think first and foremost, look within. Don't rush to throw all your budget at a set product because you think that's going to fix everything. That's probably the last thing you should be doing.
I love that. I see so many organizations just jump into, hey, we got a problem, let's buy some tech.
Yes.
Figure out what your problem is, map it out, figure out, hey, why are people not applying to our jobs? Figuring that out and asking yourselves the hard questions before trying to find a solution. Well, Alex, I appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you? I know people are going to go, hey, there's a community out there. What's this about? Where can people track you down?
Yeah. So for the community, right now it's open to in-house and external consultants of employer branding specifically. So you can go to the ebspace.com. We also, if you're not able to join the community, we are, vendors. We kind of keep that wall there to keep the conversations, Chatham House rules. But we're always willing to work with any vendor or partner who feels there's an opportunity where we can provide value, vice versa. But for myself, you can find me on one of my favorite platforms, TikTok. Love that. And I think it's great. It's great for short videos. So who knows, maybe our session here will be on there. But I do a lot of talking, sharing, and conversing on LinkedIn. So you're not going to find many people with this last name. It's unique, but look up Alex Her and send a follow request or a connection request, and I will definitely connect with you.
Yeah, mine's already sent. I definitely want to continue the conversation, Alex, and learn from you. I've learned so much. And for those who are listening, I hope you've learned something as well. The future of HR is bright. It's not going to be easy with all this new tech and AI coming in and continuing to be a competitive landscape to find the right talent. So focus on your employer brand. Alex, I already sent you my follow request. I'm excited to connect with you on LinkedIn. And for those who are listening, don't worry, we'll have all the links in the show notes on how to track down Alex. And I learned a lot about employer branding. I learned a lot about that candidate experience and how it all ties together. And I hope you did too. So if you like what you heard, please subscribe to our newsletter. That's the best way to get a hold of us and to follow along at flexos.work/subscribe, as well as subscribe to the podcast on all your favorite platforms. Search FlexOS and you will track us down there. So with that, Alex, thanks again for coming on. And for those who are listening, I appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Future Work. Join me next week for an exciting conversation with Luke Mahoney, founder and creator of SapienX, and host of the PX Espresso Hour podcast. We'll jump into a conversation about employees as customers, designing unified people experiences, exploring how to rethink the employee experience with a customer-centric mindset. You won't want to miss this one. And to get notifications of new episodes, sign up for the Future Work newsletter at flexos.work/futurework.